Welcome to another episode of Core Sport Between Sets. I am your host, Nick Dombroski. Today I have Maggie Maloney here. She is one of our co-workers here. We're kind of shifting towards a new little series. We're doing a new series about kind of mental health awareness for athletes. It's a big part of an athlete's life that not a lot of people really have too much awareness about, and something that a lot of people don't really focus a lot on coaching. They don't understand that, hey, there's resources out there. There's things that are out there now, and it's becoming more and more popular for something to focus on, because sports is just as much mental as it is performance-based. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You can work your tail off in the gym. You can work your tail off in practice, but there's something, there's another factor to those that not a lot of people focus on. And that's kind of why we wanted to start this series, kind of bringing light to like the mental aspects and the mental portion of athletics in general.
It was always a topic near and dear to me. I have a daughter who struggles. She has ADHD, impulsivity issues, but is a very, very competitive athlete and very intense. And it's been a journey to guide her through the emotions and the struggles that she goes through, both as, a kid growing up, but also the high pressure that comes with sports, especially when a child feels that extra. And that is definitely something she's been going through, but working through.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Do you want to, you have more insight. I can kind of give a little bit of a background on Maura that we're talking about today. Maura was one of the first couple people that I saw here at Core Sport. When I first started, she was diehard volleyball girl.
Yes.
Love it. She came in and she's like, Nick, I want to jump higher. I'm like, all right, cool. Let's do this. So worked on a lot of vertical explosiveness with her, worked on a lot of vertical power with her. And just from the mental side of it, just like maturity wise, like from working with her in the beginning stages and then seeing her in here now, like you can definitely see a difference in just the way she goes about staying on task, like focus, intent, things of that nature. I remember early on, we would do an exercise, have it be box jumps or something like that, and she's looking around the room, paying attention to other things, and it's like, hey, like let's get through this together.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And now it's like, hey, I'm working hard on this. I really, really, really want to be a better athlete. So she comes in, works her tail off now. Worked really hard when I first met her as well, but you could definitely see that just the changes that she's made, not only in her maturity, but also like her intention level.
Yes.
So it's awesome to see. And we see that with a lot of our athletes too, like, whether it be performance, but also like the maturity wise too.
Sure.
There's always those couple patients that come in and it's like, all right, they're younger and we're kind of, crossing our fingers that they're a hard worker or someone that will stay on task. And sometimes you get the good ones and sometimes you get some that need a little extra help.
Right.
So it's cool to watch them grow, not only in their performance, but also as a human being too.
Absolutely.
Is there, what's some background on Maura that you like to share?
Yeah, and I feel like that is something we've noticed in her game.
Mm-hmm.
Before, there would be sometimes not tantrums per se, but tantrum like behavior that I know definitely affected her team. I'm sure it frustrated coaches, teammates, but to see where she has come from those days to now, I feel like she can really keep her emotions under control. So she has grown a lot, and you can see that on the court. Belly breathing, that's something you can see her literally take a deep breath sometimes during a game when maybe there was an error made or she's about to go up and serve in a higher pressure situation.
For sure.
She takes her deep breath. I think she has different coping skills that she's learned from the help of therapists and mom and dad, and just talking to her and talking to others, and
But yeah, going off of that's the kind of the segue into the next thing I wanted to ask. Like, what are some like tools? What are some things that Maura does? Some things that you have worked with her to help these athletes? Like, what would you recommend for these athletes and anyone really in general? Because I feel like there's pressure situations in life, you know, like getting ready for a job interview or getting ready for a big meeting or something like that. Not only sports, but what are some tools, what are some things that you would like to shine light on that have really worked for Maura, that have worked with any athletes that you ever kind of come across?
I think we had to do the work. We had to get her more professional help, and I think talking to someone did help her. We always talk to her. I feel like there would be nights after a game, I'd go in her room, we'd start doing belly breathing, just really talking it out. How did you feel in that moment? And she could always tell us where it started. Like, she's like, I felt it in my feet. That's where her tension, the anxiety would build. So just talking about that and working through with different tools. Again, the belly breathing, taking deep breaths. Sometimes you have to take an actual timeout, like get off the court, get off the field, breathe, get that time, drink some water. I think talking to other athletes as well is always helpful, just to get their opinion, and someone who can handle high pressure situations. Kudos to you, because I feel like people that can do that naturally, innately, it's a gift to your team, and to your coaches, because you can lead. And I feel like Maura always wanted to be a leader. And I think that's why, truly, with time and maturity, she can get there. I think in the younger years that was harder, because I don't think teammates could look to her in that role, because, you know, she was emotional and sometimes explosive. But I think she's really honed that in, and continues to work on that so that she can be the best teammate, that she can be coachable, good sportsmanship. It's something we stress as parents. That's more important to me than if you make the game-winning hit or serve or, whatever it is.
Perfect. No, that's perfect. I think that's a big thing that me personally, like I feel like when I was playing sports, it was always like, I had to get the job done, you know what I mean? And thankfully I never really let pressure sink too much into me, until honestly after I tore my ACL, coming back from baseball. Like that was a mental hump that I had to get over, because I was so scared to use like my surgical side, my surgical leg, whether it be, swinging a baseball bat. I tore my right ACL, so that's my pivot leg. Right. So there was a lot of compensations I was making, and then realistically, like in my head, I was thinking, okay, this is just a body thing, but really it was like my mind stopping me from doing it. But I think it's a good thing for athletes to understand. It's like I said, when I got into college, later in my years, we started doing like before practices, every practice, before every game, we would actually like lay on the ground for a minute and like just breathe. Right. So deep belly breaths. And it's something that obviously we preach a lot here too, especially with Diane. She's the biggest. I mean, you can't not know about breathing with Diane, but it is something like just disconnecting from the sport and the task at hand, and just like clearing your head, focusing on something. Like we would also do like visualization, where it's like, all right, visualize yourself getting a hit in a big spot, right? Making a diving catch in a big spot, or visualize just yourself celebrating the win afterwards. Yes. And it honestly, like, it's big, and I would say it kind of transfers now, because like I'll stand up to the golf ball and like kind of visualize a good hit. Like 90% of the time, it's not the best hit, but I visualize, like in my head, I feel like I was like, I really am gonna hit the heck out of this ball. You know what I mean? But yeah, I think it's a good thing for athletes to know, to be able to disconnect from or not even baseball, the sport and the task at hand, and be able to focus on just visualizing themselves being good. Right. Actually, yesterday I went and saw a couple of the people that come in here, baseball games, and you could just see like how hard like kids are nowadays on themselves. Like, don't get me wrong, I was not perfect. I've been sat because I would get mad, throw a helmet or something. I've been benched before because my attitude wasn't the best, but I just feel like a lot, as time has gone on, like people are just getting like harder and harder on themselves. Absolutely. But also I feel like sports in general are getting harder and harder. I mean,
and they start younger.
Yeah, everyone's starting younger now. I mean, these high schoolers are like, oh yeah, sitting, I'm throwing 80 mile an hour plus in high school. Like that was like a Division I arm when we were in high school.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the game is completely changing, and I feel like there's just so much demand now that's why this is becoming even more important to focus on, because you don't want someone to just consistently be down, consistently feel like they're in the wrong or doing something wrong, and they have to be able to have that disconnect.
Right.
So
and I think, because this is something I do want to throw in here, I think sports psychologists, like the sports psych world, they're not easy to come by. That was something I struggled with, because she had talked to therapists, but there's something different. I feel like there's something, it's such a niche thing, but they were hard to come by. And so that's something I wanted to include in like the journey, which was trying to find a sports psych for Maura and, find a good fit. And we didn't. We couldn't come across one that worked or that was accessible. There was the Athlete to Athlete, which is a super cool program where D1 collegiate athletes talk to kids, and they literally talk about their stress, their struggles. And we did look into that. It just didn't work for us, but I want to put that out there, that Athlete to Athlete, there is a local woman, Jen, who's doing this, because I do think sports psych is so important. And trying to get access to that world, because I do think these kids put an immense amount of pressure on themselves to perform, to be the best. I remember someone asking me once if Maura was OCD, and I said, not in general, but in sports, absolutely.
For sure.
She wanted the best hit, wanted the best pitch, wanted the best serve, all of those things. And it's not realistic. I want my kids to shoot for the stars, that's great, but it's also not realistic. You're not going to be perfect at everything. And I feel like you were saying, you walk up and you're like, I'm going to have a big hit. I always tell my kids, the boys, I'm a hitter when they're going up to bat. Just believe in yourself. Maura, I can serve this ball. Just having confidence in themselves without it becoming crippling, that you have to have the perfect serve or you have to have the perfect hit.
Right. And I just think like so many athletes nowadays, like they don't realize that failure is a part of the game. And that's a big thing that has helped me a lot, especially with, I keep bringing up baseball as my main sport, but like Hall of Fame baseball players bat in the 300s, right? And that if you take 10 at bats, that's 3 hits every 10 at bats. Like you fail 7% of the time, or 7 of the other three. So that was a big thing that took me a while to understand and figure out. But once you start feeling like understanding that, and once I started focusing on that, because there would be games where I would walk up there and I didn't get a hit the entire game. You know what I mean? There was games that I got so amped up to play, excited to play, and sometimes I wouldn't play in those games. You know what I mean? It's just, you got to be able to flip that switch where it's like, all right, I'm either going to do as best I can, being the best teammate that I can right now, or I'm going to go out there and do the best that I can. But I need to also understand that, hey, like failure is going to be part of the game. And it's not, no one's out there doing the best all the time. You know, these professional athletes, they mess up too. You know, it's part of the game. I'm glad you brought up Jen. I kind of want to ask you about your experiences with Jen, where she's actually going to be one of our next guests, so that's kind of adding on to this mental health series that we're doing. So I just wanted to ask you about Jen. Like, what are some experiences you've had with Jen, kind of a little background, how you guys got connected, some things that you, Jen, and Maura have worked on, things like that.
So Jen is new to me. I've known who she was, and then we connected more here at Core Sport. So I had a conversation with her, and we just kind of touched base on what Maura has struggled with and what we're looking for. And we have not had any like actual one-on-one sessions with her, but I feel confident in just the conversation I had and kind of giving her a rundown of what we've gone through in the past. And I just feel confident in her passion for the mental health world, but more specifically in sports and just mental toughness.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big thing. Jen, one of her kids was in here with us, and he went through a pretty serious injury that we had to work through, and we'll talk about it on a later podcast. But he, there's a big side to injury and coming back mentally from injury, being confident in your body again, being able to use your body to its full potential again, because you do feel like, that surgical side or that affected side or limb, whatever it may be, is not the same that it used to be.
Right.
A big thing I always say to my athletes here, it's like, I got to do a set on my bad leg. I'm like, you don't have a bad leg. You have a leg that got injured.
Right.
And that was a big thing that my PT taught me, because I was like, all right, I have my left leg and then I have my bad leg.
Right.
She was like, no, you have two good legs.
Right.
Just one of them had a boo-boo. And I was like, all right, that sounds fine. I actually like that better.
Yeah.
So, and I say that too. And I say it in our meetings, even talking with my peers and coworkers. It's like, I feel like 50% of my job is like performance or rehab, and the other 50% is like mental health training.
100%.
And I feel like just some of the stuff that I've learned going through it, my fiance works with a lot of kids that are going through tough things. Obviously it's not sports, but she's really big with the mental side of things, and she's taught me a bunch. My sister's taught me a bunch about mental stuff. So it's something that I never really had too much focus on, just because I feel like I was able to flip that switch, you know what I mean? Where some people, and a majority of people, are not able to, you know what I mean?
Right.
So one thing that I want to bring up now too is kind of, in the coaching realm or therapist realm or, performance coach, whatever it be. It could be sport coach, performance coach, physical therapist, anything. A big part of your book, Maggie also is an author. She did write a book about Mo. It is a great book. One of my favorite things was at the end, you were talking about the awareness that you want to bring to it. And I think a big thing that we talked about previously was like coaches awareness, understanding, or there should be some more stuff out there about how coaches need to understand that, like, not kids going to be all in the same bubble, not in the same umbrella. Not every kid's just going to be like, all right, you got to go serve the ball 5 times over the net. Like, some kids are going to be, okay, yeah, I can do this, but some kids are going to be, shaking in their boots before they do it. You know what I mean? So if you want to expand on just what you would like to see out of coaches, how you would like to, kind of spread that awareness to coaches, or honestly anyone that is listening.
For sure. Yeah, and I think coaches and teammates alike, just to have an understanding that not everyone's the same, not everyone falls in line exactly as you'd like. We've had amazing coaches. One in particular that I can think of was when Moore was younger and really struggling at that point, especially to keep her emotions intact and be able to shake it off. Like, she couldn't just shake it off. And it was challenging for us, but I could only imagine what it was like for this coach. And I feel like he handled it so well. He handled it so well in how he treated her, and how he handled it. Like, he could have just benched her. He could have just screamed at her and said, I can't do this, or, and he never did that. There were times that he'd pull her if he felt her attitude was, she was out of line, or if he could tell she wasn't going to be able to come back from it. He would take her out. And never would I have a problem with that. I have literally kicked my daughter out of a gym because of her behavior. So I am all for consequences, but to be able to also guide her. He was such a good coach because he truly believed in her. He was confident in her. And also, I think he just handled her behavior so well. Yeah. And I remember talking to someone about it, and they said, he's in education, so they're like, there truly is something about educators coaching. Like, I do think that's awesome. Yeah. And not every coach, I understand, volunteers. We all volunteer as parents. We're not all educators. Right. But I think maybe being a little more educated on this world of, you're not going to get the kid that just listens, stays quiet, falls in line. There are going to be the kids that are sometimes probably zoning off, or doing something they shouldn't be. Right. And just a little bit more understanding, a little bit more compassion for those kids, because they are, like, they're someone's child, you know, and like, we're doing the best we can. Right. I don't support a bad attitude, bad behavior. I do my best to, to raise kids that are respectful and kind, but I can't always, make that happen. Right. Because at the end of the day, they're going to do what they're going to do. And they're their own person. Right. I can't make my kids fit into the box necessarily. Exactly. So piggybacking off of that, what are some of, like,
the tactics, what are some of the things that you noticed that this coach used with Mora or any players that you saw? Like, what are some things that you saw that really worked for Mora? What are some things that you really enjoyed that this coach did? Some things that you picked up on that he was doing?
I think he was extremely calm, which I totally appreciated because I'm sure there were times he did not want to stay calm. Very calm, very supportive. I feel like he was a very encouraging coach, but also was always teaching,
right.
you know. But I just think there was a calmness that balanced Mora, because I feel like when she was in a moment, he could bring her out of it.
Yeah.
And she's experienced that, you know, with other coaches who they just, all right, Mo, you got it, take a breath.
Right.
And she can bounce out of it quicker.
Right.
And I do think maturity now, she can definitely bounce out of it quicker. But when she was younger, I think having that coach that she felt supported by, you know, that they had all the confidence in the world in her, but if she did have failure and she did have an error, they were still there to pick her up and try to encourage her to move on.
Right. And like that's a big thing too, because there's, I mean, a lot of the coaches that I've had, and I've had phenomenal coaches in my life, but you know, if you messed up, you would hear about it. But you know, there's a time, and it's different now. But you know, especially at a younger age, like it doesn't always have to be like, all right, if you mess up, it's the end of the, you know, not that I felt like it was the end of the world, but I definitely carried more weight on it. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure.
So, and that's kind of like what we preach, like when I'm working with an athlete, or whether it be rehab or sports performance, or say it's Mora, and you know, we're stacking boxes up, we're trying to get as high as a jump as we can, and you know, we're not getting the jump height that we wanted to on our vert pad. You know, it's like, all right, Mora, like, you know, maybe we don't have it today. Like you've also, and these athletes have to also understand, it's like they work so hard every day. Like I know Mora, when she comes in here, she's like trying to fit it in because she's got so much volleyball stuff going on. Like there's so many things they're doing. Like, hey, maybe your body's a little tired today. And they're like, my body needs to be 100% all the time. And that's just not the reality of things. You know what I mean? So having those coaches that, you know, are able to, like you said, stay calm. I mean, there's times where obviously that, you know, you got to get on you a little bit, but it's, you know, it doesn't have to be where you should never be in a spot where you're playing and you're like so tense to mess up. And I've been in positions like that too, especially the higher up I played and when I was in college, because I knew, you know, my job was on the line, but I also had that switch, had that ability to be like, okay, this is not the end of the world if I mess up. You know what I mean? And, you know, I messed up more times than I didn't playing the sport that I did. So it's nice having that. I can definitely piggyback off that, and having like a support system, someone that is calm, where it's like, all right, I know this guy's in my corner, even though if I mess up, male or female coach, but it's a big part of it for sure. My next point that I wanted to bring up is from kind of breaking off from like athlete standpoint, and this is like for any parent or parents in general that are listening, or what are some things that has helped you get through this as a parent? Like what are some of these things that helped you, whether it's like your own mental awareness or your own belly breathing? What are some things that like kept you pushing through this battle that you've been dealing with Mora?
I've said prayer was huge for me. Just had to, you know, let go, let God, and hope that we'd get through the journey. I think being open with, especially people, like a safe space, that at the beginning of all of this, when Mora was younger, being able to talk to people and talk it out and talk to coaches that were willing to listen and, you know, hear our story and what we're trying to do, and, you know, we're working on it. And when you have that, you feel supported then, you know. But yeah, I think it was day by day. We just would take it and hope that she would start kind of finding her way on the path that we wanted, you know, to see her on. But yeah, I think prayer, open communication with her and others, coaches, teachers, friends. Yeah, I think talking about it does help. And I think it took me a while to get there fully, but then I saw the good that it could bring if I'm open, maybe others will be open,
Right.
and then we can get the conversation like really started
Yeah.
and moving.
And I feel like that's like kind of a common theme. Like one of the biggest common themes through everything, like parents, athlete, anyone that's going through any type of, that's like a common theme that I've been hearing like through everything, whether you're a parent, athlete, whatever, anyone that's going through something is like the biggest thing is communication.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like communication, because a lot of these kids, a lot of these people, adults too, like, I mean, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm dealing with this with my kid. You know what I mean? You always want to, like, so everyone's trying to be like, oh, this is how good my kid's doing. But like, no one really like has the confidence to be like, hey, like we're going through a pretty like a tough time right now.
Right.
So, and that comes from an athlete standpoint too, because back when I was playing, like, I don't think I would ever be like, hey, I'm, mom, dad, I'm, it's tough right now.
Right.
Like, and that's something that has just grown so much.
Yes.
And it's really cool to see that, like you said, it's not as accessible as it should be right now, but like the communication, like that goes from like teammates too. Like, hey, if I was having a bad time or something like that and I didn't feel comfortable, like it'd be nice to, reach out to teammates or have that support group for sure. And it's something that, like I said, it's not something that was big when I was playing, and I'm not trying to sound like I'm a dinosaur or anything.
No,
but
right.
I mean, it was more of like, it's become more and more, and I've noticed it more and more just working here and seeing athletes, and you can tell when someone's having, I mean, you can read their language when they come in, like if they're having a good day or a bad day, if they had a bad tournament this weekend or a good tournament this weekend. And that's why I feel like too, it's like part of my job too, to like I said, I care about how they're performing, but I also care about like how they are as a person too.
Absolutely.
And being able to key in and focus on both those parts is something that I feel like all coaches, all parents should be able to understand and be able to do.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
My next question is going to be, how did you gauge when to like push Mora versus to like, calm her down and things like that? Because I feel like a big thing here, and I was talking with some of our coworkers, is like, being in the profession that we are, like we know what's going to be good for our kids. We know what's going to help them be athletically strong, but we also want them to also be kids growing up.
For sure.
So I feel like it'd be great. This is not a question I've ever asked anyone really, but I feel like it's a question that you can kind of hone in on is what is like a time, or how did you gauge when to like push Mora to, keep grinding, keep going with volleyball and working her tail off, and like how did you also like disconnect that and also like just let her be a kid though too and like kind of learn on her own?
I think, to be honest, I feel like I just took more of a supportive role. Of course, there were the times where I had to, if she was struggling, be a parent and, calm her down, also sometimes disciplinary action.
Mm-hmm.
I think Mora was innately a fierce competitor. Mm-hmm. And so I never had to push her there.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
She just had it in her. I remember a therapist asking us, how did she phrase it? I think she said, do you feel pressured by your parents or your mom? Maybe she said it specifically to me. Yeah. And Mora literally was like, no. Like she like looked at me, she's like, she doesn't pressure me at all.
Yeah.
But I felt good about that. I didn't want to put pressure. She already had the weight of the world on her. Because she felt, like you were saying, it's not the end of the world. To Mora it was.
Right.
When she was younger, a strikeout, bad pitch, losing a game. Right. It truly was the end of the world to her. I didn't need to add to that.
Right.
I wanted her to enjoy the game more than anything. Mm-hmm. And that was hard because she didn't always enjoy the game.
Right.
So for me, I feel like I tried to just be supportive and tell her, you've got this. Like, your natural ability is going to get you places, but you do also have to work hard.
Right.
I feel like I'm pushing her more now as she's getting older because of the intensity of high school ball, you know? But I also know that that's also on her.
Right.
So I don't know. I guess for me, I try to be more supportive than I do taking the like aggressive, like, oh, you got to do this or you got to do that. Like, I think more so now, but when she was younger, I just tried to be there.
Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of the image, and that's kind of the path that I was thinking, because it is, I think about it a lot. It's like, I'm not going to be, I know I'm working with athletes all the time and knowing what's good for athletes. Like, I want to also be able to let my kid grow up. So I feel like this more supportive role, and that's kind of the upbringing I had too. Like, I mean, I would have bad games, my dad and mom would pick me up,
Totally.
they pick me up. But it was always like, and I feel like that's just, the way my family, with the South Side of Chicago in general, because like they would pick me up and I'd feel good, and then, they'd let me hear it a little bit at dinner or something like that. Like, hey, I don't know if you can get, have a second helping of pizza today. You didn't really pitch that well or hit that well. But also growing up with like siblings too, we would always bust each other a little bit. But at the same time too, like I knew that my parents were always there in my corner as well, throughout everything. Like, I mean, they would come to my baseball games in the beginning of March right at St. Xavier and sit there and freeze, and I wouldn't even be playing some of the games. So I knew like I had a great support system, but my mom still gets on me, I mean, I don't even live with her anymore. She'll still, let me know how it is, but I don't know if I would have it any other way. But it is something that it's good to know, because obviously like I have no experience with kids, but it's something that I have thought of the more and more, the closer I get to having kids, you know what I mean? Older I've gotten, is like, how do you disconnect like pushing your kid, but also like, or how do you find that balance between pushing your kid and supporting at the same time? So, and I feel like it changes too as the older they get.
And I do think you sometimes just let them take the lead. If they want, when Maura was pitching, do you want a pitching lesson? But we weren't like, you're getting a pitching coach and this is, or even my boys, like, do you want to go for a batting lesson? Sure. Like, but they're not seeing a hitting coach regularly. And if they wanted to, we'd do it for them. I don't know. I don't think anyone's going to the MLB or, so I'm good with guiding them and helping them, but I don't want to put any more pressure because I know that they feel it. But I will, like you said, as you get older, I think it is harder because when these kids want to go all in on a sport and they're approaching high school, it's a different world. It's a different beast.
For sure.
So I feel like I maybe am more, I try to encourage her to do more, like as far as, getting reps in or getting in,
Right, because, you want them to still develop as a player too. And like you said, like that high school, that level from grade school to high school it's a jump. It's a huge jump. And it's something that, like I said, it's good to understand. It's good to push. Because like I'll be honest too, like you can kind of tell just from the awareness that you're bringing and like things that I've learned on my way, like on my journey, just from playing and also like learning about it as I go too, is you can kind of see the kids that carry the weight on their shoulders, and you can kind of see like where their support systems are. And whether, I'm not saying like their parents are bad, but like, you know what I mean? I'm just saying like it could be something where they're just like I said yesterday, this kid didn't have his best pitching and performance, and then his next at bat he struck out, and you would have thought he lost the World Series. You know what I mean? And and it was crazy because I knew we were having this podcast today, so I was like, that's going to be something I'm going to bring up tomorrow. And it's just like, it's something that I feel like awareness about it and just us talking about it and you living out what you've lived out, and then also spreading your awareness with Jen, with you, just being here in general, you know what I mean, and talking on the podcast is something that would be good for people to hear, because it's not always just bouncing back from an injury. It could be bouncing back from a bad game, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, and I do hope that it makes people feel less alone. That was a big thing for me. There were the moments, I'm at a game and I'm just sitting there so stressed and so tense because I don't know in my mind if she makes a bad play or they lose. I never knew what I would be dealing with.
Right.
And I know there are parents out there that sit in my seat. So it's just spreading the awareness so that people feel less alone, more understood, and just encourage compassion.
Yeah, for sure. It's a very good point. I like that leeway. I kind of want to not pivot, but what how is Maura doing now? Like where have you seen Maura's progress? Like what has she been up to? Obviously she's been knee deep in volleyball.
Right.
No pun intended. She's been working her like I remember she was coming in, and sometimes she would come in the last time I worked with her was like a recovery day. Me and her just
Yeah.
did recovery, and this was a couple months ago. And she's like, I've had volleyball like every single day, and I have volleyball after this. I'm like, all right, well, we're
Yeah.
gonna stretch, do
Right.
some mobility,
Yes.
things of that nature. So, how is Maura doing now? Like, what are some of the big changes you've seen with Maura? Just basically, how's Maura doing?
I think the biggest change I've seen is her recovery from errors or rough games, losses. It's not as heavy.
Nice.
She gets upset,
For sure.
but it's not end of the world. It doesn't take over her night or day. I feel like she keeps rolling. And I think what, like you said, not every game's going to be perfect. You're going to have errors, you're going to fail. And I think it kind of lights a fire in her to do better then. And I think that's always been in her, but now it's in a better, like, healthier way. So I feel like, yeah, she's come a long way. She just finished club season, and then we'll be on to high school. So that is a big jump, and I think a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping she handles that, with grace and hard work.
Yeah, I'm sure she's gonna be great. And that's another thing too, is like I was talking about this the other day too. Is there's no more, like, when I was growing up, you could play in-house like fall ball, you could play like in-house whatever, or spring ball, in-house this. Everything's like club and travel now. And I feel like by the time that like my kids become, well, first of all, my kids are born and then become old enough to play a sport, like there's not going to be like in-house stuff, and the pressure of like right out of the gates, like you got to try out for like a travel team at like 5, 6, 7 years old. Or 7. Yeah, Brittany's son, good luck, Lucas, is trying out for like a travel team. Like,
Right.
And not that it's horrible, but it's like, bam, there's that pressure right away.
Yeah, there's
like,
not the
in-house, you just signed up and you
fun.
played. You know
and
what I
you
mean?
played with kids you don't know, like, as well, and you meet new people. I don't know. It's sad that, like, those days are not. I don't know. I hope somehow, some way, in-house can stick around a little longer.
Yeah, especially like when I was younger, like I never really had the pressure of like joining a team. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, it was like, oh, I want to make the all-star team for the in-house this year. And it's like, that was a big thing if you made it or you didn't. And, there was years I made it. There was years before where I didn't. You know what I mean? So like that was like my only little pressure thing I had. But like, these kids are trying out for travel baseball, club volleyball, like right out of the gates. And I mean, it's becoming like I said, it's just like completely pushing like in-house and just like the fun away from it. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's turning into like more of a business than like a sport.
Oh,
you
for
know
sure.
What I mean, there's these travel teams used to have like 1 or 2 teams. Now they have like Team Z. I'm like, hey, what team do you play on? They're like, the Team Zebra. I'm like, what is that? And they're like, the Z team. I was like, that's unbelievable. There was 2 teams when I was playing you guys.
Oh my gosh, it is crazy. But I also feel like this is what I'm glad the conversations are happening more about the mental health, because I think it's going to be more prevalent with how young these kids are starting and the pressure they're going to feel so young. So I hope the conversation keeps going and that there is more access to the mental health world with the sports niche.
Yeah, it's definitely changing. I will tell you, this job is the first time in my life where I've started to feel old a little bit. I will say.
Because all the high schoolers.
High schoolers, and they're like, oh, I just turned, 14, and I was like, oh, or I just turned 16, and they were born in 2010. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was 10. But it's just like seeing how sports in general is changing, and also being around this area. I feel like sports is it's like everyone plays sports. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like everyone does something around here, and there's a lot of high level athletes around here too. So it's like also having the pressure from just your community almost, and how to be like deal with that community, like the community stress of like, hey, all my friends are in sports, and some, if all of them are in high level, that kid's gonna want to be in a high level sport too. You know what I mean? And that's why I just think what you said is being able to teach these lessons younger and understand it younger, and also having like parents and coaches understand it too, will help these kids kind of transition throughout their entire careers almost.
For sure.
Last little remark that I wanted to ask you is, like, in mental health awareness in general, what are just some of the key things that you like shining light on? What are some big things that you like to hone in on? What are your like when it comes to mental awareness, this is what I want to bring out. This is what I like from what I've been through, from what I've understand, from what I've learned. Like this is some of the stuff that I would like to spread.
Understanding and compassion. I think you're going to pass people, you know, whether it's at a game, in a store, and there's going to be the kid that's maybe not, you know, the perfect angel, or you see someone super frustrated over what you think is minor. Mm-hmm. I think it's just being sensitive to the fact that not all of us are wired the same way, and some of us deal with things differently and react differently. And so I hope that people can see that and understand that. There was a book I read called What Happened to You, and it was basically the nicer way of saying like what's wrong with you, but that everyone has a story and there's a reason we are the way we are, and respect that, honor that, but just truly being more understanding and compassionate towards everyone.
Yeah, I think that's a big point. And like I said, me has been from more of the stuff that I've learned from outside of work too. Like, you know, my fiance has ADHD. Great lady. She does pretty good. I mean, Vyvanse is great. No, I'm just kidding. But she, you know, it's something that I had to understand with her because, you know, there would be, even moving in together, we moved in 5 years after dating. And, you know, sometimes she's like, I know that I have to vacuum, or I know that we have to get ready for a party, but it's like my mind is just not there, and it's something that I had to understand, like just with her. And then my sister has dealt with some mental stuff as well in high school, and that was something that I didn't really understand. I'm like, what do you mean you can't like get up and go to school today? You know what I mean? It was just not something that I understood. So like honestly, learning from my sister, my peers, like you said, my support system, in talking and learning about it, because it's not something that I was fortunate enough not to deal with, but it is something that a lot of people do deal with, you know what I mean? So just like you said, the awareness is big, and it's something that like now when people come in, like I said, it's, you can tell when someone's having a bad day, or you can tell when someone's like, you know, not their best. And honestly, it's like, I feel like it's part of my job to make them feel better. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like I said,
physically and emotionally,
yeah. 50-50. I think I have a 50-50 job. Thank you so much for sharing all that. Seriously, I know it's not very easy. I know this is also your first podcast that you've ever, right? Is this your first podcast you've ever done? Are you a secret podcaster?
I know. I'm like, have I been? No, I think this is it.
Yeah, trust me. I never did a podcast. I never even listened to podcasts until I started doing podcasts. But I really appreciate you. Like you said, it's not always easy talking about stuff like this, especially when it's something like that's your own kid that you're talking about. It's not like, oh my gosh, you know, Maura just made a Division I school. It's like, hey, Maura's dealing with some stuff right now. And I know it's not very easy to talk about. And I really appreciate you taking the time and being on here and talking with us and sharing it.
And I appreciate you having us.
Before we move on to our closing statement and our buying stock, I hope you have some good stock. I think I have a good idea who your stock would be. I also will have stock in that too. But I just got to kind of bring up, and kind of, it's not often that you have a coworker and a mother and a person in our community that is also an author. I want you to kind of, you know, toot your horn a little bit.
So yes, I wrote a book on my daughter about a day in the life. It's called The Daily Dose of Mo, a mother's journey to understanding neurodiversity. And it was really a poem that came out of a very hard time in my life with dealing with Maura and the struggles. And then I thought, if I share this, it could be a cool way for people to kind of get truly like insight into what our day looks like. And I got a really cool illustrator that really brought the story to life, and I think brought the emotion into it. So trying to think of what I'm trying to say here. What else did you ask me?
Where can you read it? Where can you find it?
Yes, so you can find the book on my site. Actually, if you go to @MagpieWrites24 on Instagram, that can lead you to my page. So yeah.
That's awesome. When I came home, Diane gave me the book maybe a month or two ago when we just started the podcast, and it was something that we did. And I edited it. We have a bookshelf in our living room, and Kayla's like, what are you doing with the book? Kayla reads a bunch. Like, I mean, I had to buy her a Kindle because we were spending too much money on books. But And when I was sitting down reading it, she's like, "You're reading a book?" And I was just like, "Yeah, it's actually a really, really interesting book, and it's about neurodiversity." And she jumped all over it. She's like, she took it out of my hands, wanted to read it and everything. She starts reading it, and I was touching up on it last night too, just to be fresh for this.
Right.
And she starts tearing up and everything while reading it. It's really like it does, especially I'm sure for her, and then me personally, like, you know, I thought about my sister, like especially like waking up in the morning, like that I would always remember my mom, like, hey, I don't know if your sister's like waking up wise, like I don't know if she's gonna be let's go to school, or I don't really want to go to school today. So it was something that I was like reading too, and I was like, you know, who's cutting onions in the house, you know what I mean? So it's a it was a very good way to understand what you guys went through without going through what you went through. Right. And it was really, really, really well done. And the illustration was a really, really good.
Thank you.
It really did paint a really good picture about it.
Yes.
And
so it's good to talk about it knowing there is, you know, light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, for sure. And that's why, like, I'm just grateful that this is being brought up now, because it's something that I feel like it's in like the beginning stages of it. And I hope by like the time that
you've got kids,
I've got kids, that it's, you know, bigger and there's more access to this, where it's or I know more than I know now, that I can help them through whatever they may be going through. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So thank you very much for sharing all that. And being here.
Thank you.
And being awesome. And a great parent. My final thing is every episode I wrap up with who you're buying stock in. So it can be literally anyone. I know you have some insider trading that I don't have, but I don't blame you for whatever stock that you do pick.
I know. I feel like I have to have stock in Mo and Maura. I feel like I have to.
She's
and I do. I truly do believe in her. I feel like she will do great things in her life. So
that's awesome. Yes. Yeah, I started this, and after I started it, I'm like, because I work with everyone, like so many people here, and I have stock in literally every single person I've ever worked with here. But this week, I'm gonna go with my buddy. He's kind of came around into my schedule right around when Maura did. Young kid from over here. He is Evergreen Park boy. He's not in high school yet. He's still in grade school. His name's Liam Rowan. He's cousins with everyone in the south side of Chicago. I guess his dad has 1,000 siblings or something like that. But every time Liam comes in here, I mean, he came in here very, very quiet. Didn't, you know, he was still figuring out how to use his body, things like that. And we called him Hollywood for a little bit, because we made a little hype video about him of just how his progression has been over the couple of months and everything. And he still comes in and still enjoys working. Works his butt off every time he's in here. So my stock's in Liam Rowan. I think he's going to have a really, really good basketball season coming up.
Nice.
And he's also an avid golfer, too.
I was just going to say, isn't he into golf?
Yeah, he's pretty big into golf. We are trying to plan a day to go out, and me and him would play his dad. And then our last podcast guest was Colin Iannacci. So Colin Iannacci and Liam's dad are close.
Okay.
So we're going to do young guns against...
All right. There you go.
Slightly older guns. Slightly older guns. So yeah, he's been working his tail off. But like I said, everyone that comes in, there's no one that comes in here where it's like, oh darn, I have to see this person today. Right. You know what I mean? So it's really, really cool. Again, I just want to thank you, for being here. I know it's, like I said, it's not always the easiest thing to talk about it, but I'm glad that you are showing people that it's okay to talk about it, and it's easy to talk about it too, whether that be just me and you having a conversation or putting it out on a podcast. You know what I mean? Right. So it is awesome that we're spreading this awareness, and that's kind of why we jumped over this mental health awareness kind of series. And I think this is a perfect start into it. Kind of introduce Jen a little bit. We will have Jen here. Right. We will have Jen here. And then we have an athlete that plays high level sports that wants to be on. So
awesome. There's
a lot of stuff that comes from, you know, the parent standpoint to an actual person that works with it to an actual athlete that does it. You know what I mean? So it's going to be a nice little series, and it's going to shine light on it. The first couple episodes were more about core sport in general, but now we're kind of like, hey, let's expand out to not only our athletes, but just athletes in their community, athletes in the world.
It's awesome.
So thank you very much for everyone for listening. This is your host, Nick Dombroski, here again with Maggie Maloney. Just want to thank you guys again for listening, and stay tuned for the rest of our series. Thank you.
Thank you.